I'd like to welcome you to our Health Corner for December 24th, 2015. And what I'm going to try to do, because I haven't been able to do a lot of these recently with all the breaking current events, is whenever I can carve out the time on a given week, I'm going to try to get these recorded ahead of time so that I can tack them on at the end of my current event studies I'll be doing on Sundays typically. That way I don't have to try to do a large current event study and then also do, and what happens much of the time is I just kind of run out of gas. I mean, if I'm doing a 3 or 4 hour study and then I have to do another 2 hour health corner, when I'm done, I want to try to be my best, and I want to try to be, coherent. So I'm going to go ahead and try to start doing it in this format. And this information today is so important, so bombshell. I can't even stress that enough. We're going to be talking about a lot of different subjects. It's not a very voluminous study. It's about 8 pages. And again, what I'll probably do is make sure that this particular one has its own, it will have its own PDF file that you can access. It won't be tacked on at the end of all the current event information. So it will have it's going to be like its own little autonomous study that I'll be posting. So the first report, and I received an email today from a listener about people that are being implanted with RFID chips, the radio frequency identifier. Basically, what we're going to see the mark of the beast kind of morph into. It's going to be a more demonstrative thing, the mark of the beast. You're going to receive it in your right hand or forehead, this type of stuff. But what we're talking about today here is being covertly microchipped without your consent or knowledge. And this information is beyond chilling. I had a listener, Julie, she lives in Australia, and she said, "Hi friends, a warning to those who may go to the hospital for minor procedures. One of my workmates recently went to the hospital to get a benign lump out of her breast. When she was discharged from the hospital, the doctor informed her that he had put a chip in." So what they're doing is, before, and I know they're still doing this, they were just chipping you without your knowledge. Okay, we're going to be looking at this. Now I think what they're going to want to do in order to beta test things is they're going to start slowly telling you, yeah, you got chipped. To gauge public reaction, to gauge public outcry, as more and more people hear about this and more people seemingly aren't having any type of, let's say, symptomatology, even though a ton of people are, they're trying to create a normalcy bias basically with this thing, with being microchipped, which ultimately will result in the mark of the beast. They told her after the fact that she was microchipped. Julie said, "My chin nearly hit the floor with shock. I suggested that she go back to the doctor and demand it be taken out at their cost. It should have never been put there without her permission, so be careful when you go to the hospital. You may have to tell them no chip, otherwise they may just put one in. Yeah, they might do it anyway." It's hard to say. But yes, I mean, you would want to make sure that they clearly understood that you were not to be microchipped under any circumstance. This organization that does about as much research on this as anybody may have some type of form you could download that you could present to your doctor ahead of time. I don't know. I'm speculating. But I received another email from another listener named Eric today, and RFID chips implanted without knowledge. And then he said, "Have you seen this? Is there any truth to this? More importantly, what can you do to stop them?" Okay, here's the problem. What he had forwarded me was the information from the Wyoming Institute, Technological Institute. That is a totally bogus college/institute. Anything you see with the Wyoming Technology Institute is bogus. Okay, so what the New World Order is trying to do is introduce disinformation at the same time that this information is being released. Then there was another report I saw somewhere on Alex Jones's forum where it was nationalreport.net that was talking about it, and they were referencing, I believe, the Wyoming. Nationalreport.net, anything from them, and just let me confirm this real quick here. I just want to make sure I'm giving you the right, yeah, nationalreport.net. Anything from that news source is totally bogus. It is fake. Okay, so anything from the Wyoming Technology Institute or nationalreport.net is totally fake and bogus. That's why it's super important to vet things. And so I knew, though, that there was plenty of information out there on the subject. I have covered this in part in some of my teachings. And I found this video entitled RFID Chip and Beyond Implanted Without Consent. And this is from this organization that's probably done more research than anybody on this subject. And I'm just going to read you basically like the table of contents, and then we'll play just a little part of the video. This is a must-see video radio interview by ICAACT leaders. This is the organization I was in reference to. Lars Dragard and Jesse Beltran. Please do not hesitate to share, like, and distribute this video to everyone that you know. And I would have to say that this is something that you would want to share with like everybody. Implants do not only have tracking capabilities, but they also have the ability to affect, monitor, and change the carrier's brain functions and biological functions to a degree that can only be compared to torture. The torture can lead to death or suicide. Now, again, they're not doing this on everybody, obviously, but I think ultimately what this is doing is when you're implanted, technically, you've entered into the era, you've entered into the realm of being a cyborg. You're part human, part machine, to a certain extent, a very small extent. But, Satan's the most subtle beast of the field. He's going to start slow, typically, when he tries to implement this on a mass scale and go further. The bottom line is, with these chips, if there comes a day when, let's say, disclosure happens, or when the Antichrist and the false prophet are revealed, or, if they have enough of the population chipped, and they literally activate these chips at this point, to put your brain in a state that you will be very, very susceptible to suggestion, to whatever falsehood is being set before you. There's going to be a lot of people that are almost going to be on autopilot, and they're not even going to realize it. This is the implication of this. This is a heaven and hell implication. Because if they can manipulate your brainwave patterns and your brain to the point where you're not making rational decisions, and if they can, let's say, do something to potentially sear your conscience, do something to potentially make you apathetic toward the gospel, well, that means that that person's not going to get saved. Now, I'm not saying God can't override that. I'm not saying God can't, but the person themselves may not have any desire. Maybe somebody praying for them at that point would be able to do that. We've talked about the vaccines that that Pentagon, that FunVax Pentagon tape that, I know there was a lot of controversy over it, but the bottom line is if they could give you a vaccine or introduce something into the air or the food or the water that would fry your VMAT2 gene, which is associated with religious thought, associated with dogmatic religious thought. Now, that could be good and it could be bad. It could be you're dogmatically believing in the Lord Jesus Christ and His Word. You can also be a radical Muslim. But they said in that video, and I've played that, just key in VMAT, just V as in Victor, I believe dash MAT, M-A-T, or just VMAT. You'll probably find it at contendingfortruth.com. Or FunVax, if you want to hear the study on that. If they can find a way to do that, well, they've overridden the consciousness part of your brain that gives you that ability to even want to seek God in the first place. If they can turn us all into apathetic automatons that, you know, have no desire for God or God of any really sort other than the God they're going to put in front of us, well, mission accomplished by Satan. And this is what I believe the ultimate goal is. So they're trying to use every bit of evil, wicked technology. You're using cell phone towers, you're using the sound of silence technology. These are all things I've covered many, many times. You've got HAARP waves, you've got scalar waves, you've got the fluoride in the, well, in so many sources, the water, the toothpaste, the vaccines, which burns out your lower brain lobes, which controls your will to resist and turns you into a docile, servile person. Mercury does very, very similar things. So they're trying to hack our brain in the worst ways you can imagine so that people will not be capable of getting saved. That's ultimately the goal for Satan. He wants you to be so brain damaged or so electronically manipulated and brain damaged that you'll have no desire for God. All you'll have is apathy, other than whatever they want you to focus and key on. And you can understand, I guess, why, the Bible says if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Where Jesus Christ talks about this. And that when Satan's going to come, he's going to deceive the whole world, and the only ones that are going to escape is the remnant that get saved and that are saved. And it's truly sober. Now, I'm not saying, again, God can't override these things. I'm not saying, he's not going to override the mark of the beast, though. Once you get that, it's over. So, do not take the mark of the beast under any circumstance. Don't take any microchip under any circumstance, is my advice. And that would mean, by default, not getting any vaccinations whatsoever. It is getting so unbelievably in-your-face evil about the agenda that my head is spinning. And 2016, from the indicators I've seen, is the year they really are ramping up their efforts to silence alternative media, Christianity in general, especially Bible-believing, fundamental Christianity. Anybody that takes any kind of stance for righteousness, morality in a good way, in a biblical way, pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, pro-First Amendment, this is the year, from what I'm seeing, is they're pulling out all the stops. People are waking up. So what it's causing the New World Order to do is also pull out all the stops, because they realize people are waking up at too great a rate right now. And they need to put the brakes on it, because they do not want humanity to get to a critical mass where they can actually put the brakes on things. If humanity has enough numbers, they're going to have a very hard time implementing their agenda. So this is why I believe they're getting so incredibly aggressive and in your face. Now, going back to this description here, table of contents, implants, okay, going further, I already said that. Lars Druggert and Jesse Beltran are interviewed by a Dutch radio host in Brussels on October 5th. I believe, I believe this was in 2012, believe it or not. I can't even imagine how much it is now, how much more prevalent. They talk about the work of ICAT, which is this organization they have, which involves finding factual evidence of implants in victims' bodies. They're finding factual evidence. They're doing scans of these people with their meters that they've got. And this is like a black and white thing. This isn't something that's subjective, meaning, well, in my opinion, they don't have it. No, these are meters that pick up the RFID radio frequency broadcast coming from the microchip that's literally powered by your body, because they can run off like a 1,000th of a watt or something, or a millionth. So your own body actually powers these things, and it's broadcasting. Okay, they're picking these up in an unbelievable amount of people. I'm only going to play 3 or 4 minutes of. I would highly encourage you to listen to the whole interview. I haven't even listened to the whole interview yet, but this is totally confirming everything I've been warning about. I'm not going to give it all away yet, but what they end up saying is everything and even worse than what I've speculated. Far worse, actually. Uh, and people would say, what do you do about it? Well, if there's any way you could ever get it removed, and again, you're going to have a physician, and the likelihood of that is going to be very low, most likely. Praying that God deactivate the chip, and I would say fasting and praying, beyond that would be about the best suggestion I could have. I have heard that implants can be deactivated with a magnetic pulse in certain instances. I don't know. I mean, they might have worked around that. It's hard to say. I guess the only way you'd know is if you had it scanned with one of these devices, and I'm not 100% sure exactly what they're using, but then you had it magnetically pulsed, and I mean, there's magnetic pulsers that you can actually buy for healing. In fact, that's on my list of things to get. Soda Instruments has a very, very, very good one, which would be a really good thing to have in your household for the end times, for injury healing when you can't or do not want to go to a doctor, if you know what I mean, because it's going to get so bad, particularly with Obamacare, that it's going to be just like the big brother experience of your life to even get into this system. So I think that whatever we can do ahead of time, preparing for medical catastrophes, as God so leads you, and things that you can do to self-remedy, and this is what we're going to be talking about today to a certain extent. And this is why I do what I do with clinical nutrition and with the Envive Silver and stuff like that. I'm trying to get people so they're not dependent upon that system, because it is not healthcare. It is disease propagation care. They want to propagate diseases. They want to propagate the problems because that's how they make their money and that's how they gain control. The medical system in general. And it's only getting worse. So, going back to this description here about this video. Now, it's over an hour, but we're only going to be listening for about 4 minutes. It says that they talk about the work of ICAT, which involves finding factual evidence of implants in the victims' bodies. An important part of this is to scan the victims for radio frequency emissions from their bodies. Another is to be of help to the victims when they interact with doctors or authorities who are prone to claim, without doing any investigation, that the victim suffers from psychological disorders, which is always their default position typically. Oh, you're just crazy. You know, break out the butterfly nets and straitjackets. You think you have an implant or something, when they're the ones actually doing it. ICAT helps victims to prove these professionals are wrong, and also to help them deal with this new type of problem in today's technologically advanced society. Traditional treatments and diagnosis might be obsolete in some cases. Lars Druggard, one of the men that you'll hear interviewed, talks about the development of these chips and their use in prisoners, which, you know, they have a captive audience. Prisoners, military. Okay, we're going to look at that a little bit more. And he talks a little bit about the CIA experimentation documents that exist. Jesse Beltran talks about the very specific places in the human body where the RF, radio frequency, is being emitted, suggesting that implantation of individuals is not random. Both Beltran and Druggard speak about how the implants work, using changing magnetic fields that power them up. Basically, your body is powering these things. We are electrical beings, and the electricity that these chips require to run, it doesn't take a lot, and there's more than enough electricity in our body to power the chips up for them to actually even broadcast. They also talk about the different types of implants that now exist and are constantly becoming smaller and smaller, more difficult to find. Hitachi had microchip dust back in early 2000s, and that was what they were admitting to. Now, I'm not saying a microchip of that size can broadcast a signal. I don't know, but they're getting better and better technology in order to implement this stuff. Another subject is how these implants can easily be introduced into the body, and the fact that some people only emit a radio frequency through a specific spot in their bodies where they had an operation done or a flu vaccine. Yes, they're doing it through the flu vaccines. I warned about this back in '09 when I did all those studies on the swine flu and how they had the ability, through quality control at the end stage of making the vaccines, to put an implantable microchip at the end of the needle, at the end stage, so nobody even knew that was even working at the plant that it was even in there, other than the end stage ones making these vaccination syringes. But now what they're doing is they're finding the people that have had their flu vaccines, and they're scanning them, and they've got RFID chips in them. And this is why they're so, this is another big reason why they're so aggressive about the flu vaccines and vaccines in general. I'm not sure how prevalent they are in other vaccines, but the flu vaccine for sure. And this is why I'm saying, if it was me, I'd avoid this stuff like the plague. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and roll this short clip here where you'll hear their take on this. These are the men from ICAT being interviewed.
Lars brings a good point. I was asked to do a presentation in front of a leadership group in a city south of Sacramento, and they had politicians there, religious leaders and business leaders, and they had saw our video that we had produced called Domestic Terrorism Silent Rape.
Okay, so this is Sacramento, California, where he's talking about.
And after we were done, they asked if we had the equipment, and they demanded that we scan them. What we anticipated finding was a very, very low positive finding.
So he said what they anticipated finding, if you didn't hear that, is a very, very low positive finding. Now, this tape was made in November 9, 2012. I don't even know when this was done. Let's say 2012 sometime at the latest.
What we did find was ultimately more disturbing with regards to the percentages versus the symptomatic group. And the reason why it was more disturbing is because out of that group, 90% came up positive. Now,
90% on a random bunch of people that showed up for this. Granted, maybe they had suspected that they were, but 90% being microchipped? I mean, do you know what you really start to think about the spiritual implications of this. I mean, it's so draconian, so mind-blowing, so chilling to think that we could have that much of the population walking around actually being microchipped. Now, I'm not saying that means they've all taken the mark of the beast. I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying that if they were saved, it makes them unsaved. But it sure isn't going to help their spiritual walk with Christ. And knowing that this has been totally covert, totally under the radar, totally suppressed, totally done without any consent at all, just makes me understand and realize how evil this really is and what is the actual real agenda. Are they getting ready to turn these things on at the appointed time? They've got so much technology that is always in the air 24/7 that can accomplish this. You know, the cell phone, the scalar, the harp, there's all type of these types of waves going through our body 24/7. You've got Wi-Fi, which is horrifically bad for you. It really is overwhelming to think about it. And again, it's why it's always good to refocus back in on the Lord Jesus Christ and pray for His deliverance, pray for His protection. This is why I did that whole study on Psalm 64. Imprecatory prayer, a Christian's door of hope, which is the title of it. And I mean, our hope is through the Lord Jesus Christ, but there's a lot of prayers in Psalms that are, I mean, David was crying out for God's protection. David was a man after God's own heart. And this is what it is really going to boil down to, is the Lord Jesus Christ protecting us from this, and that we have the wisdom, we have the understanding, we have the knowledge in order to comprehend the times that we're living in and understand the pitfalls and the snares that are all around us. And this is what why I have this ministry, really. So let's go ahead and go back to the clip.
Let's analyze this particular group. When we started to pick it apart, those who were in the military came up positive in all the same identical locations, so you can superimpose them over each other.
Okay, so the military, now he doesn't say where they were all coming up positive in the military. Military is vaccinated to the gills. Military, they don't have, Clinton passed an executive order where they don't have to be told what they're getting, what's in it. They don't have any right to know, and they don't have any right to refuse. They own you lock, stock, and barrel. So the vaccines alone are enough in the military for them to be implanted like crazy. But evidently they found the microchips in the same exact spot, meaning that they know exactly what they're doing, and they're, for the sake of uniformity, or maybe there's some other draconian agenda, they're being implanted all in the same spot. The military, I believe he goes or indicates that it's about 100% of the military. Now, when they started doing this, I don't know. Like, let's say 100% RFID chip rate in the military. When that started happening, I don't know. But I guarantee it's 100% now, and it has been probably for many, many years at this point.
Take photographs and superimpose them over each other and be exactly the same. The next group was groups that had elective surgeries. So they came up in an unusually abnormal area.
So be very, very careful with any elective surgeries, any surgeries, and particularly with dentists, the ability to fill a tooth and put in, and that was something that I've heard. RFIDs and dentures, root canals. These are very prevalent ways. Plastic surgery, cosmetic surgery, very prevalent ways that where these things can happen. So, I wish the world wasn't this way. I wish it wasn't so unbelievably wicked and evil. And there's all of these nefarious agendas, malevolent, nefarious, evil agendas afoot, 24/7, only getting worse. But unfortunately, this is the day and time we're living in, and the Bible does predict it was going to be this way. And the Bible says the evil men and seducers shall wax, meaning grow, worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. 2 Timothy 3:13. So this is the day and time we find ourselves in.
We can take them out of the group because they've been counted. And what was left was generally these little old ladies, and they're only coming up positive in their right and left arm, or right or left arm. And then you ask them, well, what did you have done there? And they said, well, the only thing I've had done there is my flu vaccine.
Yeah. So did you hear that? The little old ladies they had. Now, the reason that, the elderly are one of the ones they really, really go after with all the marketing campaigns and things of this nature, and they're just brainwashed. A lot of the elderly in this regard, not to say the rest of the population isn't either, but they were the ones that were at this meeting that they were having. So let's say a younger demographic maybe might not have been as equally represented. But they all had the RFIDs in the same spot in their arm, and the only thing that they had done there was their flu vaccines. And now I believe the main reason why they're so big on the flu vaccine campaign and promoting that wicked, evil, sick, twisted agenda. They're trying to get everybody on the planet microchipped. And the thing about it is I really don't even think these things have even been utilized in the way that they're going to be utilized. And that's something I haven't heard people talk a lot about. Okay, great, you got an RFID chip in you. Okay, it can do this and it can do that, but is there going to come a day when the true purpose of why they were implanted comes to the surface? And again, this is what I'm talking about, being able to influence thought pattern. Or, theoretically, if they know that you're a non-compliant person, well, are they going to torture you with it? Does it have some way of poisoning you? I don't know. So, this is just mind-boggling to comprehend this.
Come to me. Yeah, it's very easy, eh?
If you look at the groups that we tested, and you have to say, okay, what are the odds of factoring everyone else out, the military, those who've had electric surgeries, and all you have left are people coming up positive in the right or left shoulder area? That's where you get your shots. You have to use common sense and say, is this possible? And I think most people would conclude absolutely. So this particular testing that we did of non-symptomatic group, we also did, because we were so concerned about it, we went to one of the larger cities in California, in Sacramento, and we just took a whole bunch of just random people and started testing them, and the statistics were exactly the same.
Exactly the same. Meaning 90% of the people were implanted. And this is why there's these disinformation sites that they've got, this Wyoming Technology Institute and this national, I really believe these are all government disinformation to totally discredit any type of information about it. I've had a ton of people email me over the years saying that they're under harassment, they've been implanted, they get tortured all the time, their lives are like a living you know what. I don't have a really great resource to point them to other than these guys in prayer and fasting, and it's something that I need to get more information on myself. But this is just unbelievable what we're dealing with here. And then going to the next report then, and this just broke today. The hype around the Internet of Things has been rising steadily over the past 5 years. The era of sensors has only just dawned, according to renowned technology investor and internet pioneer Mark Andreessen. In 10 years, he predicts mobile phones themselves could disappear. I've heard it's going to happen quicker than that. Smartphones could be gone in 4 or 5 years. Well, what do you mean? What I mean is that they will go over to literal neural implants, where they actually can put it in the eye. Maybe something like Google Glasses. I'm not 100% sure. And I'm not saying it's going to absolutely happen in that time frame. But they want to get everybody plugged into the Matrix, essentially, where you're under literal technological warfare control. Not really thinking that you are, but you are. That way, in that regard, whatever that they're doing is going to be probably more powerful than a microchip implant. Let's face it, a microchip implant, if it's the size of a grain of rice or whatever inside you, they can't make these things big if people don't even know they're there at all. Whereas you have a piece of technology like a neural implant, and it's there, and it's larger, and it can generate more, I can't even imagine. This is why I'm so against the whole smartphone thing and all this stuff, because I see where it's going. There's a picture of this guy here. He says the idea that we have a single piece of glowing display is too limiting. And remember, I will have a separate PDF for what I'm covering here. This will not be in, this health corner will be probably at the end of my current event study. Okay, but it will have its own PDF. its own separate PDF, its own separate audio. So it's going to be an autonomous teaching, and that way I can kind of present it all together while still keeping them separate. Anyway, the idea that we have a single piece of glowing display is too limiting. This is this guy talking. By then, I guess in 10 years, every table, every wall, every surface will have a screen or that will be able to project. He told the Telegraph, hypothetically, you walk up to a wall, you sit at a table, you talk to an earpiece or an eyeglasses to make a call. The term is ambient or ubiquitous computing. And ultimately, the end state is it's like inside you. And like ultimately, the end of this is, like I said in that one video that I'd played several times, basically having your consciousness downloaded into a computer and you live in this, whatever. You know, it doesn't work that way. You know, you get to go to hell while you think your consciousness is being downloaded into a computer. The end state is obvious. Every light, every doorknob will be connected to the internet. Everything. And this is why I'm so big about holding on to the older technology, resisting, not getting a new car, not getting a new TV, not getting these things. I'm trying desperately not to upgrade to this Windows 10. And they're making it, they're trying, you know, you get it for free. They're all of these, the Windows updates are automatically preloading it on your computer. It's beyond Big Brother. It's, you know, and they're trying to herd and force everyone into this paradigm. And they're trying to make it harder and harder to stay in the old things like that. And again, there's that's such a gigantic topic to cover. There's no way I can even possibly cover that in totality, because it gets into your appliances, it gets into your vehicles, it gets into so many different things. But this is all about data mining, creating a database, and getting you plugged into the matrix is the bottom line. And we have other reports. This just came out today. These are just things that were in the headlines. Advanced facial recognition tools coming soon to smartphones. And I give you the links here so you can click on them, but I'm not going to go any further. I'm just trying to, you know, get through. I mean, this is I'm doing this at 1:21 a.m. at night, and because it was about the only time I had a little extra time where I could do this. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that I'm trying to do this in addition to my current events, because obviously this is so important and has gigantic spiritual implications, what we're talking about. The next report, private car ownership on the road to rarity. I haven't even clicked into that, but I mean, it's, you know, what they're going to true is basically having any type of private ownership of anything of really any substantial value. Cars, particularly property, homes. They will try to make that harder and harder. I mean, look at the Hunger Games. Did anybody own anything there? No, the state owned it all, and they just basically gave you the privilege of eking out a tortured existence for the benefit of the state. You know, so this is where they're trying to bring us into the Hunger Games, as I've said many times. Another report, DHS placing patriots on domestic terror watch lists in unlawful attempt to escalate violent interactions with police. So if you get pulled over, this is a heads up. If you're on one of their domestic terror plot lists, domestic terror watch lists, I'm sorry, and a cop pulls you over, runs your tag, pulls you over, he's going to come pretty much locked and loaded, hammer back, you know, probably drawn down on you. And you're not even going to know why he's pulling you over. They're trying to escalate these situations so that the patriots start firing back, essentially. They see a cop being very, very aggressive, and the cop has this, you know, 3-alarm fire. This is a bad guy, real bad guy. But this is what they're trying to, this is evidently going to be one of the things that they're going to try to start phasing in, is this type of, I'll just read you the first paragraph here. The Department of Homeland Security is intentionally placing local law enforcement in harm's way by knowing and falsely, and not only that, but the patriots harm's way, more importantly, if you ask me, and falsely entering the license plates of patriot-oriented hosts, well, like me, in the Federal Terror Watch database. Now, that's not just to say they're just doing radio hosts, okay? Granted, yeah, I'm sure I'd be on that list, but I'm thinking about anybody. I mean, they track internet usage. They do all kind of algorithm. They have their threat fusion centers that are gathering data on the. I mean, I think it's a lot more than just radio hosts. The aim of this tactic is to intentionally cause escalations of high tension interactions between local police and pro-gun patriots, knowing that the local law enforcement will respond to a terror watch list hits with an escalated engagement posture involving firearms being drawn and pointed at the suspects. They're doing this all on purpose. The DHS, obviously at the command of an anti-American Obama regime that absolutely despises both patriots and police officers, is hoping that either the patriot suspect opens fire on the police or that overreacting police open fire on the patriot. See, this is what they're wanting. They're wanting to get this civil war going, this war between the patriots and basically everybody else. Either way, this serves the agenda of the Obama regime and creates a powerful narrative that mainstream media can use to call for nationwide gun confiscation. How do we know this? Because Pete Santilli, the host of Off the Hook on, and I don't advise listen to Pete Santilli. That guy's a foul-mouthed devil, if you ask me. Why do you got to go up there and be perverted? I can't even listen to that guy. Listen, I came from a very unsafe background, and I wasn't any angel. But so I know about all that lingo and this Of course, I don't know the new lingo now. It's so perverted and gross and disgusting. Half the stuff I don't even know, like terms that I find on the internet. I'm like, what is that? And they've got whole websites devoted to describing all of these disgusting, perverted, sick, sexual terms. These urban dictionaries and stuff. I mean, it's unbelievable how wicked and perverted people are. I saw something the other day that was a documentary. It was on like Nightline or something on swingers in the United States. And these are the people that trade couples. These are like newlyweds, okay? And in this case, it was like these newlyweds, really good-looking couples, and they all swapped partners and wives, and a lot of times, it's men on men too, and women on women. And I mean, and they were interviewing them. Oh, we're happy together in this, but we just need to spice up our marriage. And I'm thinking, what on God's green earth it does not compute to me at all. And they gave the statistics on how many, and this is just one demographic, of how many swingers exist in the United States. And it was like way, 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 way into the millions. And I'm thinking, oh my word, I can't even imagine all of the ways that we deserve judgment collectively in America. I can't even comprehend it. It just boggles my mind. And that's just one really severely perverted group. But anyway, it says Pete Santilli, the host of Off the Hook, on TalkNetwork.com, was pulled over by a police officer in Cincinnati just 2 days ago. His license plate was flagged by the Federal Terror Watch List, causing this police officer to respond with a very aggressive, high alert stance with his primary firearm drawn and pointed at Pete and his passengers as terrorism suspects. So his response by the police officer was entirely appropriate based on the intel he received from the DHS. After all, thanks to open borders and insane refugee resettlement programs, the Obama regime is actively transplanting ISIS terrorists across the United States, readying them for being activated on a nation terror-wide. And remember, he's got to implement martial law before he gets out of office. This is why, another reason, 2016 is... If it doesn't happen, if this stuff doesn't go down in earnest on 2016, I would be absolutely amazed. I know I've been saying that all the way back to 2009, I know. But this year of any year, I can't believe how insanely aggressive things are getting. And how overt and in your face their draconian agenda is becoming. So going further, it said readying them for being activated in a nation terror wave, meaning the ISIS. Um, but what this police officer did not know was that he was being manipulated by DHS as part of a scheme that deliberately places police officers in harm's way by causing them to collide with patriots who are fraudulently placed on the government's terror watch list. Now, again, I'm not against good cops at all. I mean, I love good law enforcement, good firemen, good, I do. Okay? When I was in reference to before about being more important, I was more reference to the not so good cops that are, let's say, trigger happy, that are basically brainwashed by the New World Order, that are going to carry out orders and not ask questions, even though it's going to be against the Constitution. Those are the ones I'm in reference to. So anyway, this is what we're dealing with here. Next report. And this is actually dated. I didn't even see this. Happened a few months back. Now, I was telling you about all the holistic doctors they've been killing, okay, and the ones that are doing all types of cutting-edge cancer research that are even in the medical field. I don't even know what the list is up to now. But here's one that happened not too long ago. 29 holistic doctors poisoned, some suffering life-threatening conditions at a conference. You can click on this link. Then this just broke last week. 2 doctors walking home. I believe they're both cancer research. Both found dead. One stabbed to death in a safe neighborhood. Then another one. This just happened today. Another Canadian doctor about the same age, who was also a cancer researcher, was also murdered. So they're really going after I'm just like, and I look at myself. I'm like, I do all of it. I mean, like, I'm an alternative practitioning doctor since '93. I've got my own radio thing. I have my newsletters and all stuff. But you know what? The Lord Jesus Christ is my defense. That's the bottom line. I'm not worried about this. I'm going to be wise. I'm going to walk circumspectly, as the Bible says. Okay? I'm going to try to do that, yes. But I'm not going to go around living my life in fear. If it's God's will that I'm martyred for this type of purpose, well, then let the Lord's will be done. I just hope that if I am martyred / murdered, if the Lord permits that, because Satan just can't do this on his own, that multitudes and multitudes and multitudes of people would get saved as a result of me being martyred. That would be my only request to God. That's it. And that Taylor would be taken care of. That would be my request, because that would really hit her hard. And I'm not praying for this. I'm not praying to be a martyr. I'm not asking for this to happen. But I'm not scared about it though. I've already a long time ago crossed the line where I knew if my life was going to be required, then it's required. May the Lord's will be done. But I also pray Psalm 64, over my listeners, over myself, over Taylor, over this ministry. And God has miraculously protected us. Miraculously, over and over and over again. So, and I do believe that the remnant is going to be used in an incredibly mighty way in the coming end times. And a lot of these people that think that they're going to kill people in the remnant that are doing God's work and doing a work for Him, that they're going to have a real rude awakening. They're going to have a real rude awakening because, that guy that tried to astral project into our house. When I was asleep and Taylor was there, God's trying to build Taylor's, and she cut his silver cord. In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, I cut your silver cord. That's what she felt she needed to say. This guy was literally coming into her bedroom. She could see him. In like a transparent, and she immediately, as soon as she did that, she saw this abject look of horror come over the guy's face, and he disappeared. He was being pulled down into hell. Once you get your silver cord cut, you're dead. And when people that astral project, and this is a cultist that'll say this, they have a silver cord that attaches their body to their spirit. And the Bible talks about the silver cord in Ecclesiastes. If the silver cord ever be cut, or I think the golden cistern be broken or something like that, then you die. And if you astral project from a witchcraft standpoint and you get your silver cord cut, you're dead. You go straight to hell. So, you know, I mean, man, I part of me just wants this facade to end. This whole facade of the Illuminati trying to act like they know what's in our best interest in these types of things, and I mean, they're still doing it. We have the mass media brain, and I'm not saying that's going to end, but I'm saying when literally the forces of good and the forces of evil are literally physically engaging, I'm actually can't wait for that. You know, interacting with black-eyed beings or other world entities or reptilians or werewolves or whatever. My God created the universe, bottom line. And I'm getting more and more reports from my listeners of them having supernatural, paranormal experiences along these lines. And I do have a study in the hopper that I'm preparing, and it's going to be kind of like the one I did on this recently, but it's going to be more updated information. I just have to find, the time to get in there and get this done. But I had something today, or no, when did this happen? A couple days ago. And I was going to Charlotte, and I had Taylor with me, and I got on this one particular section of Road 16 that goes to Charlotte. It's a great back way to Charlotte. It's like a lot of people, just like the GPSs don't pick it up. But I've had a lot of weird stuff happen in this one stretch of road. My sensors come on sometimes. I can't receive cell, and granted, it may be totally from the cell phone towers and stuff, maybe in that area. But I was going down the road, and the newer vehicle that I purchased, I had to get out of the last vehicle I was in. It had over 150,000 miles, and I could just tell the thing was not long for this world. It was probably gonna have some gigantically major repair bills. So I got into another vehicle, a Nissan, like a all-terrain type vehicle, and very, very grateful for the vehicle. Got it used, but it was like new, and had like 70-something thousand miles on it. The person before me had meticulously maintained it other than one thing. And I'm saying this because this is a really good warning as well about vehicles in general, this one particular aspect. I'm going down the road, and I'm on highway driving, everything's going good, and all of a sudden I hear bump, and I felt it, and all of a sudden it was like I was driving in neutral. Accelerator didn't work, anything, and I'm like, oh my word, I just lost my transmission. And I pulled over to the side, shut the car off, turned it back on. I was able to drive. What was weird though is there was a guy behind me that did the same thing. And if it was something purely electrical, I don't see how that could have been the transmission. Maybe he was following me. I don't know. But he did the same thing. He pulled in front of me and was looking down at his dash. And then I was able to drive out of there, and he drove out the same time I did, and then he was trailing me on my left side, going slow like I was, because I didn't want to go over 55 at that point. Because I knew I knew something really bad had happened. I had a check engine light came on, then my tire sensor came on. I'm like, oh no, and turned around, and I knew it was a transmission, and in my head I said, it's $5,000. It's $5,000 for this thing. I know it. It just is like it popped in my head. I'm like, no, well, let's try to think for the best. Let's not be negative Nancy or Debbie Downer. Well, I got home, scheduled to bring it in, got it in there this morning. Sure enough, exactly what I had felt was exactly what had happened. And I say all that to say this. I thought that, and the whole thing about that guy following me, I don't know, maybe that was God's way of getting me out of that situation. I don't know. But he turned off because I ended up turning around, and I think it would have been too obvious if he was following me. I don't know. But when I got to the dealership, um, they they broke the bad news to me, and it was exactly what I thought. And I said, I brought this vehicle to you when I was first thinking about getting it. It would be, I was thinking in my own eyes, a wonderful vehicle for end times. If you had to go off road, it was in unbelievable shape for being an '05, and I was just really, um, you know, it's exactly kind of what I was looking for. And I'd had an SUV before, really liked it, and I'm a pretty big guy, and man, it was hard for me to drive a little car. It was just kind of hard. Well, anyway, um, I had brought this vehicle to them to vet it ahead of time, and the only red flag was the guy never got his training fluid changed, which to me I couldn't understand because the guy that literally owned it was the main manager at a local Chevy dealership, and it was his wife's personal vehicle. They had meticulously maintained it with oil changes and every other thing, but they had never done the training. And I took it to Nissan and I said, listen, my only concern, my biggest concern here, because they do their whole multi-point inspection to give vehicles a once-over, is the transmission sound. Okay? They went through all their stuff. They said, yes, the transmission fluid need change, but it looks like it was okay, and that everything else, there was no warning lights, no nothing. So I vetted it as much as I could, but you know what? It's not good enough. I say that to say this. If you're looking at a used vehicle, you make sure that you can get record, and I had the Carfax, I had all that stuff, but make sure that you have the record for the transmission fluid flushes being done, preferably at 30,000 mile intervals. And if it's a truck that's towing, it has to be even more than that. And no more than 40,000 per. I'm just telling you, I lost a transmission in a Camaro when I was going to chiropractic college because I didn't do it. And this time I lost it, and I had done everything. I thought I'd done everything I could do to vet the thing, but wasn't good enough. So I'm just telling you, I'm paying for this with a $5,000 mistake. So I'm going to, whenever I make mistakes in life, I like to warn my listeners. Because maybe they're in the process of thinking about doing something, and maybe that's the one thing they're not sure about. You have to have proof of the trainee fluid being flushed, and preferably 30,000 mile intervals on that. I mean, granted, yeah, the oil changes, and that's what most people think about. But there's far more to maintaining a vehicle, and I'm extremely meticulous about this stuff. But there's far more to it than just oil changes, oil lube, and filters. So anyway, I just wanted to give that as a warning caveat there. So going further, the next report is analysis: Chipotle corporate sabotage. GMO industry is planting E. coli at Chipotle restaurants in retaliation for its anti-GMO menu. This just came out today from the Health Ranger. They're literally planting E. coli in their food so that Chipotle, their stock dropped, I don't even know how much now, so that they're demonized because they're the only large main fast food chain that's going against GMO. This is how sick, twisted, and wicked and evil this world has gotten, where this is the standard operating procedure here. I'm running out of time here. The next report, and then then I had all these people emailing me today about the website, which is DrJohnsonDecember242015 being down. All of Envive's websites are down. That's actually their website. And yes, I do get credit. I get credit for you ordering through that website. Okay, but it is Envive's site, and said I just saw this. I went and checked it. And I told them that, and it's still not resolved yet at this point. All the Envive sites are down. But there's a new error code that you're going to start seeing on the internet. And I'm almost 100% sure this is the error code I saw when I initially went to my website here. And it's HTTP 451 error code for censorship. is now an internet standard. And this report just came out. The 451 HTTP status code is now official in the eyes of Internet Engineering Task Force, or IETF, and the independent organization responsible for many of the Internet's operating standards. Now, when an Internet user hits a web page that has been blocked for supposedly legal reasons, meaning censorship, they may be presented with a 451 error code instead of the more generic 403. Basically, what you're going to start seeing is the alternative sites, the sites that are putting out truth, the sites that are putting out cutting-edge products, and they've come after Envive a lot in the past already. And they're going to start being censored and shut down. And I believe 2016 is the year that is going to start happening in earnest. So what I did is I put in here, I said, if you're needing the Envive Silver, email me at Dr. Johnson, just DrJohnsonDecember242015 at the letter I, the letter X, .netcom, N-E-T as in Tom, C-O-M, .com. Okay, I give you my email. It's my email address. Okay, email me and request the information on my current Envive special, which is the best price you'll be able to find anywhere on silver, on the Envive Silver. Period. There's no internet. Envive did run that special a few months ago through my website, and that was the best price you'll ever see, because it was like literally you order, I don't know, it's like you order 2 bottles and get 1 free or something like that. I don't know what it was. It was something that Envive did for about, it ended up going about 35, 40 days. Whether they ever do that again, I kind of doubt, but they did it. But otherwise, if you buy it through me, and that's not off the website, if you buy it personally through me, I make it as easy as pie to get it through me. I have the best prices with free shipping in the United States. Now, sorry, no overseas orders on my end. I just can't. It's too much paperwork. It's too dicey for me to try to get something across the borders to other countries. It's just, and me being a one-man band, it makes it even harder. There's just so much more involved. So, anyway, I wanted to throw that out there as well. Okay, I'm going to go ahead. I've run out of time for this part, so we will go ahead and go to part 2 of the Health Corner, and we will see you there. God bless you. We'd like to welcome you back to part 2 of our Health Corner, and we're just going to go ahead and continue on here with the information I have. And some of this information I've put out in health newsletters before. Some of it I have in documents, and this is just like a compilation of different things that I've received a lot of emails about. And this is one of the many. This report just came out, of course, but this is becoming more and more well-known information. And it's a study: coconut oil improves cognitive function in Alzheimer's patients. The remarkable stories of families seeing dramatic improvements from Alzheimer's and dementia are documented at coconutoil.com. I would also say you'd want to do it for any type of advanced onset type of, like Parkinson's included. And I do have a file on that goes into a lot more in depth. If you would like that, just email me and I'll forward it to you. But it literally gets into Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's, which for a long time I really wasn't 100% sure what the proper course of action was. I knew things that would help it, but the reports that are coming out now are much more definitive as to what helps these things. Coconut oil seems to be the base product that you do in that type of situation. Remarkable results from it. In many cases, adding several spoonfuls of coconut oil a day to the diet of one suffering from Alzheimer's in dementia has resulted in memories returning, the ability to once again converse with friends and loved ones. And there's quite a few testimonials. The the one that I've been using and the one I like is it's kind of like a whole food line, but their primary product is the coconut oil, the virgin coconut oil. And in fact, the best one they've got is this gold label virgin coconut oil. I'm just clicking on this link. And I provide the links here, so you can just click right on it. And it comes in various different sizes. And they have really went out of their way to, I really think they've got the best coconut oil, virgin coconut oil out there. They give you the whole thing. It's glyphosate tested. It's independent laboratory analysis shows this one to be the highest quality coconut oils in the market, having the highest levels of antioxidants, using what they call a wet milling process. Anyway, it's a lot there, but if you want to know more about it, I give you the links here. And then there's another link here on how to use coconut oil, and then what is virgin coconut oil, and then where can I buy it, and I give you the link for all that. So that would be the one I would implement, because quality is everything, and you could go to the grocery store and get something that, thinking that you're getting, you know, what you potentially need to help a certain particular problem, and let's say it might have been heated to a point where a lot of the beneficial properties have been killed. So you want to make sure, particularly coconut oil or anything else, any other kind of supplement, that you're getting the purest, highest quality product you can get. And then the next report is, these are some essential oils I just brought into my product line. I've had a lot of requests of this over the years because I mention essential oils quite a bit. And a lot of times people will place an order and they'll ask if I have this or that, and I don't have it. Well, this new line, one of my main suppliers, they just brought in, it's not really new, very, very high quality company. And I have to tell you, of all the essential oils I have ever used, this is my favorite by far. The first one that I had ordered from them was the peppermint. Now, I always have peppermint with me, always, whenever I go out. It's a cooling oil. I tend to get overheated easily, and it's a cooling oil, great breath freshener. It's incredible for pain issues, for mental clarity, for a host of things. And also I have always said that if you are using the Envive mild silver protein, particularly at the higher strength levels, it doesn't taste good. It's extremely concentrated. So if you just take a little bit of this and hit your tongue, I had been recommending the Now Foods peppermint. This blows that one away. In fact, when I'm done with my Now ones, I'm going to exclusively be using this product, and it's also organic. And so I guess they get their peppermint, in this particular case, the best place to get is India. And so let me just click on this link here. I'll just describe a little bit more about it. For 10 milliliter bottle, which is a decent amount, it's 14. So you could look at something like Young Living, which almost all the oils, I don't think any of them are organic, number one. And two, it's a Mormon New Age based company. I used to be in Young Living a long time ago before I kind of knew better. And the reason it's called Young Living is Gary Young is literally a descendant of Brigham Young. That's why he will, a lot of times in his talks, say, some people have said, I'm just a chip off the old block. Meaning he's a chip off the old Brigham Young block. Brigham Young, Gary Young, the guy that owns Young Living. Multi-level, greed-based company as far as, my experience with them, and the oils are way overpriced. And so this for organic peppermint oil is a really good deal, and this is my favorite. I believe it's the best tasting peppermint oil I have ever used by far. It's amazing stuff. If you click on the links that I provide, it's going to give you a ton of other uses that these can be used for. Okay, it's a host. I really don't have time to get into all of the uses, but peppermint oil is one I always have on hand. And then the next one I've brought in is they have a frankincense oil. You know about frankincense in the Bible. And this for 5 milliliters is 15. Now, frankincense is super expensive. So $15 for a 5 milliliter bottle is a really, really good deal, and it's actually also organic. So that's another excellent deal. For thousands of years, frankincense essential oil has been considered precious for spiritual and meditative purposes. And again, I'm not trying to give any New World Order transcendental meditation, but it's very, very good for mental things that you're dealing with. It also protects against airborne illnesses and maintenance of youthful skin. And again, it gives you all of the different uses here of frankincense, which there's a ton. There is an absolute ton of ones for frankincense. Then we have the organic lemon oil, 10 milliliter for $9. And again, best lemon oil I've ever used, because I use it in all our water. It's kind of like, without actually having to go out and put lemon slices and everything, you can put a drop of the oil. And I was using Now Foods for, well, a ton of years. This is just a higher quality. You can just tell. It's a better tasting, higher quality oil, and excellent, excellent oil. So this is very good for also mental fatigue. Extremely good as a disinfectant, lemon, and again, that's why it's so good, lemon juice in the water, because it actually kills germs. It's very, very good for your immune system. Lemon juice just with honey, people that are doing that are experiencing all types of health benefits just from doing that. It's very good for the circulatory system, the immune system, the lymphatic system, the nervous system, mental fatigue, and you can diffuse it. I diffuse it quite a bit. I have a diffuser right next to me. I have an ultrasonic diffuser, which I think personally, it's the way to go. The regular kinds of diffusers that actually just diffuse straight essential oil, they're extremely expensive to run those, because you're going to typically go through a lot of the essential oils. But the new ultrasonic diffusers that they've got out are amazing. And you can find them on eBay and in all kinds of places. They sell them. But basically what you're doing is you're adding water, and then you're just adding so many drops of a given essential oil, or a combination or blend of that. And these things, a lot of times, like this one I've got next to me, it'll run for, man, if I give it a full little tank there, it'll run for, I don't know, 8 to 10 hours straight. And I'm not using that much essential oil while I'm doing it. It's much more efficient. And so this is just listed for a ton of different things. Lack of concentration. It's an air purifier. Would be really good if you ever, in the event that we did have some type of outbreak, this would be a way you could actually purify the air in a room without actually, because air purification, if you just run it through a filter, it's not going to actually sanitize the air. Ozone will do that, but you got to be a little careful with ozone, because you don't want to run it too high. This is also a really great way to do that. So let's go to the next one. Tea tree oil. These are just like the standbys. I wanted to bring in like the standby essential oils that are like the most popular. Tea tree is another excellent one. This is for 10 milliliter bottles, $11. It's used widely to treat all 3 infectious organisms: bacterial, viral, and fungal. So if you were to, let's say, diffuse this with lemon, it would be a really good way to kill germs in the air. Let's say everybody in the house was coming down sick, or let's say they had a pandemic or outbreak. You could literally have this treating the air and killing the bacteria, virus, or funguses in the air just from this. So it's also a powerful immune stimulant. It's one of the, generally, like if somebody comes to me and they say, what do I do for toenail fungus, which is one of the hardest things on the planet to get rid of, I generally tell them to do 5,000 part per million and 5 ml of protein topically, straight, and then alternate that with tea tree oil. I think that's about as powerful of a combination as you can get. You could also take the 5 ml of protein internally, because most likely you have candida in the bloodstream if you've got yeast or candida on the toenails. It's usually a internal problem as well. Okay, going forward here, it says it's been revered for its usefulness by the Aboriginal people of Australia for many hundreds of years. It's a reputation as a cure-all, treating fungal, viral, and bacterial infections. Its germicidal action is not as strong as that of more aggressive oils like oregano. The problem with oregano is, I mean, it's great, but you've got to be super careful with oregano oil, particularly if it's really strong. Whether you're going to do it topically or internally, because that stuff can burn, and it also doesn't smell good. So compliance can be an issue with oregano. It has an advantage tea tree as it's mild and it's not a skin irritant, so it can be applied for long periods of time. It's also known for the skin healing properties, and often suggested to help treat everything from acne to bug bites to sunburns to athlete's foot. Probably what you would want to do if you use it with a sunburn is you would want to use it with what they call a carrier oil. And actually, if you click on these links that I provide for these oils, they tell you how to dilute it. Typically, they're going to say a 3 to 5% of tea tree oil in, let's say, 95 to 97% of the carrier oil. And the carrier oil is just an oil that will go along with it, and you can use it. Not only does it make the oil last a lot longer, but but the other oil will have therapeutic properties as well. Like it'll be good for the skin. People use like jojoba oil. I'm trying to think of good carrier oil. Sometimes they'll actually add it to even aloe vera gel. That wouldn't really be considered an oil, but you can add it with aloe vera gel. So you have jojoba, you have almond oil. There's different types of carrier oils out there. I'm just trying to think of some off the top of my head, but anyway, you can get the carrier oils pretty much anywhere at any health food store or online. So it's used for blisters, burns, chickenpox, insect bites, rashes, sunburn, warts, because it has an antiviral property, wounds, dandruff, oily skin, and so anyway. And then the next oil, lavender, which is considered like the Swiss Army knife of all oils. This one is organic. This is about the most expensive one I've got. It's $27 for 10 milliliters. But again, you compare this to like what Young Living would charge, or a lot of other companies. And I mean, to get organic lavender oil from France, which is where this is from, which is where the best lavender is sourced at, I mean, you're going to pay a ton of money typically. Lavender is just hugely popular, and again, considered like one of those all-around oils that just does a ton of different things. It instills a peaceful atmosphere, sense of well-being, harmonizes your nervous system, and it's healing, rejuvenating, cleansing for your skin. It's well known for its ability to heal burns, big time on burns, as well as cuts, insects, bites, sore muscles, and scars. And again, for sore muscles, you dilute it 3 to 5% in carrier oil, whatever you want to use there, and it's excellent for that. Also, this is excellent for if you have someone in your house. This is what I did with Taylor. I could still do it to this day. If she can't get to sleep, and usually she always can, if I diffuse lavender, or even in her case, put a little bit on her pillow or clothes, she'll typically go right to sleep. And I mean, it would just knock her out unbelievably. It doesn't have that same effect on me, but it is something I do every night. In fact, a report just came out where they're actually taking the lavender. Now, I would only do this with an oil like this that's organic, and you know the source. This is organic oil from France, and they're doing, I think, 5 drops. In fact, I put out the link recently. 5 drops in a capsule, and I do that every night before bed. And I take a little bit of melatonin as well. Sublingual, under the tongue. I try to do the lowest dose possible. But I find if I do the lavender and the melatonin, man, I will go to sleep like every single time. The lavender really made a big difference for me. And you only need 4 to 5 drops in a capsule. And you take it internally right before you go to bed. And for me, sleep is the hardest thing. I have such a hard time getting to sleep. Once I'm to sleep, I'm usually fine. But for me getting to sleep is tough. And with all of the electronic, stuff they're doing with cell phone towers and all of the things I mentioned, the electromagnetic stuff, there's a lot of people now that have a really tough time going to sleep, and I think really that's a big reason for it. So if the only option on that is if you had something like one of those EMF bed shrouds, where you're literally totally not having any type, and there are EMF shielding garments you can wear too, but those aren't like going to form like an airtight seal. You're still going to get some EMFs, but it will help. But the actual EMF bed shrouds, the problem you run into is those things are, you're going to look at usually at least $1,000, to get one of those, especially if you have like a queen size bed, and then if you're on the second story, you really need to have the bottom shielded. But I do have a listener, and I told her she had a smart meter installed on her house, getting all kind of headaches, devastated energy levels. And I said, listen, this is the only other thing I can tell you. And I said, I'm pretty sure this will work. I said, but they're expensive. She got one, and immediately the first night she started sleeping, and she was able to get quality rest. Problem is when she got out from underneath it, it started up again. So they ended up having to move to ultimately get resolution. But it did give her that sleep, the bed shroud. And so this is a wonderful oil to use in an ultrasonic diffuser before bed. If you get an ultrasonic diffuser, get one with a little bit higher capacity. That way you don't have to refill it all the time. And get one that, I guess in this particular case, you would kind of want to get one that possibly had a timer, because if you just wanted to diffuse it for an hour, that way it's not running the whole night. And also, so a timer, and then also they've got all these lights now that like project in these things, and get one that you can turn the lights off as well. That would be very, very good to do, because you obviously don't want a lot of extraneous lights going off in your bedroom when you're trying to go to sleep. One of the keys to sleep is having as dark a room as possible whenever you go to bed. Okay, so that would be what I would advise for you if you're going to go with a diffuser. Okay, and typically for your decent diffusers that have a higher capacity, that would have a timer, you're going to be looking at probably at least 40 to 50 starting. Depends how how you want to go, but quality is everything. You have to think about things nowadays, like if the world implodes tomorrow and I have a lot of junk, let's say I bought like really cheap stuff, well, when that breaks, you're not going to be able to replace it. Now I know we all want a good deal and that type of thing, and I'm as guilty of that as anything, and I think we should try to be thrifty and get as good a deal. But you also want quality, and particularly with like I've been doing research lately, just in my spare time a little bit, in which I don't have a lot of that, but like looking at just tools. And I have come to the conclusion, and this is actually common knowledge, that so much of the tools now that you would, like a guy would go to get, whether it's a vise, it doesn't matter, hammers, axes, you name it, so much of it's garbage. And so much of the metal a lot of times is garbage, and so much of it comes out of China. And a lot of the people that are up online showing, this is how you sharpen an axe, this is how you do this is how you do that, they have a lot of very old tools. A lot of it is their grandfathers, and this stuff is like it's not going to break. I mean, if you have an axe, the handle's going to break eventually, typically, but the actual metal is what I'm in reference to. And there's a huge movement by people, trying to get, vices. You try to get a good vice, you want an American-made vice, and you want it from about 40 years ago. Most of the time. Because that was when they made quality vices. Colombian made very great vice. And it's American-made. The vices they have now, they're cheap. They're from China. I got one the other day from Lowe's, and literally the thing out of the box was garbage. And it wasn't even from China. It was one of their better ones. And a gentleman I know here that is right next door, he basically had several vices, and he said, take that thing back, just use this one. And he gave me one of his Colombians. And I'm just borrowing it. I asked him if I could buy it. He doesn't want to sell them. I mean, I think he probably knows in the end times. He says when he goes to auctions, the first thing that will go will be the old American vices. So, you know, that's just something to think about regarding the day and times that we're moving into. So let's go to the next product here, the next oil. And this one's called Mental Energizer. And this is basically one I think that would be good to carry with you for test taking and or to diffuse if you're trying to, like I plan on diffusing this in my next study. I probably would have done it tonight. I just kind of forgot. I got it right next to me though. But let's see here. It's got peppermint, lemon, lime, and ginger. And this is specifically for energizing you mentally and providing mental clarity. And it says you can dilute in vegetable oil 2 to 3% and rub into temples. I mean, you could use it straight too. I've already tried it. It's not that. It's not like it irritates your skin, but everybody's different. So yeah, I mean, it's good for low energy and assertiveness, nervous fatigue, all that stuff. So I brought that one in because I think that would be a common one a lot of people would, want to have. And that's $10 for a 10 milliliter bottle. So it's a really good deal. The next one is, let me just see where I'm running on time here. The next one is eucalyptus radiata, basically eucalyptus. And this is one that you'll see me when I tell people to nebulize the silver 100 part per million in a nebulizer. This is one that I like to say put 1 drop in the nebulizer cup because this really helps to open up the lung fields. It gives the silver solution a really nice smell, and I love this stuff. And so it eases colds and congestion, and it's mild enough to use with small children. It is helpful in soothing sore throats and breathing passages. And it's really, really good, like I said, if you nebulize it. You really only need a drop in a nebulizer. You really don't need any more than it. You don't want to make it too strong. It has powerful germicidal properties. A mixture of just 2% eucalyptus oil that evaporates in an aroma lamp will kill 70% of Staphylococcus bacteria in a room. Wow. And that's just in an aroma lamp. And I don't even like using those because that actually heats the oil. I would much rather use an ultrasonic diffuser because that's the cool thing about these. There's no heating of the oil. So you're not getting any degradation of the oil. So that's pretty awesome. It kills 70% of Staphylococcus bacteria in the room, and that's only at just 2% oil, and that's with an aroma lamp, which is an incredibly inefficient way to actually diffuse the oil into a room. And it also heats it, which I don't like. So it's listed for respiratory system, asthma, bronchitis, coughs, congestion, sinusitis, immune system, cold, fevers, flus, sore throats, nervous system, headaches, nervous exhaustion, neuralgia, weakness, fatigue. And it tells you all the different ways you can use it there. Let's go to the next one. The next one is called Headache Reliever. Now, I get a lot of inquiries with people about headaches. Now, with chronic headaches, though, what I always tell everybody to do, typically, first off, is make sure that your cervicals, your neck, you have 7 vertebrae in the neck there, that they're in alignment, and that really can only be done by a chiropractor, which I'm a chiropractor, and that's what I did for a lot of years. So, from my standpoint, most of the people that had headaches, you could resolve their headaches with just an adjustment. If they weren't holding the adjustment, you gave them manganese. The product I think is the gold standard I like to use is the Ligaplex 2 by Standard Process, what I take personally. And you give them 3 or 4 of that a day until they start holding their adjustment, and then, maybe 1 or 2 a day. And probably all I average on that is 1 or 2 a day at this point. I'll typically skip a day or so, take like 4, and then skip another day and take 4. But if you have ruled out that it's not the neck causing it. Or let's say you've even got the neck in alignment, you're holding your adjustments, and you still have headaches. This would be another product to try. Headaches can be very complicated. It could be that you have a toxic system. You need liver detox, colon. That's another thing that can actually bring on headaches. Uh, there's a lot of different causes, and I do have a file on that subject that I can email you. Just email me and I'll let you know. But for 10 milliliters of this, it's only $12. So this is something that you could diffuse in a room. I think it would be the most efficient way to do it. Let's say you've got a pounding migraine or whatever, and you diffuse this in the room with the doors shut, so none of it's getting out, and probably be a really, really good way to go after a headache. I don't hardly get headaches, so this isn't something that I have a lot of experience with. I'm just not really prone to them, and I thank God for that. But this has birch, peppermint, and sweet lavandin essential oils, and let's see here. I'm just seeing what they're by applying headache reliever to the area of your pain, you can avoid giving your body a toxic overload of headache medicines. Absolutely true. I mean, whether it's ibuprofen, whether it's aspirin, all of these things have a lot of side effects. And I've got into that before. And they're damaging the stomach lining. They are very, very hard on the liver. And so these are things that you really want to try to avoid. And so this would be for either migraine, tension headaches, sinus headaches. It really doesn't matter. You actually can take it, dilute 5 drops in 5 milliliters or 1/6 of an ounce of a carrier oil and massage into your temples. And then you could also diffuse it. It's also good for sore fetuses and aching muscles. So there's that one. And again, you're looking at all these 10 milliliters for $12. These aren't anything that's going to really break the bank. These products. In fact, these are some of the most low-cost products I have in my whole product line. Oh, here's another thing I wanted to mention. A lot of times I have found that people will hear about a product I talk about and they'll go, about the only place you're going to find standard process products is on Amazon. And theoretically, they're not supposed to be sold on Amazon because you're supposed to get those through a healthcare provider. You can find the standard process products on Amazon, not all of them, but a lot of them. But you're going to pay 2 to 3 times what I sell them for online. They're literally 2 to 3 times the price on Amazon. And I think it's because who's ever doing this is taking such a risk regarding violating company policy that they're like, well, if I'm going to take this kind of risk, I'm going to gouge people. As a healthcare practitioner through standard process, you have to agree to sell the products at retail, which is what I've always done. Okay, I know very, very off that. But they're incredibly hard to sell via a website because you have to go through the consultation. And see, what I'm basically doing now is giving you a consult. Or when I talk about a specific product, that's like getting a consult. But I don't have time to take on patients. So it's kind of like a happy medium. But to try to sell them through an online website is just such a hassle. So who's ever doing that on Amazon is theoretically they should not be doing that. But you're going to pay 2 to 3 times the price. So then I'm going to sell them to you for, just so you know, on all the standard process stuff. And so if you don't know how to order those, just email me, and I have a whole thing pre-done. I can send you over. It goes through the whole thing on a price list. So yeah, this headache reliever really looks like another excellent product. And then another big one that comes up is rest, sleep. And I plan on, as soon as I get a diffuser in my bedroom, because I've only got one in here right now, I'm going to use this at night before I go to bed. And this is basically $20 for 10 milliliters. But again, you're not using, when you use an ultrasonic diffuser, most of it's, the vast majority is water, and it's not heating it, and you only have to use, X amount of drops in the actual diffuser. Or you can actually use it with a carrier oil and apply it to the head and chest area. You can use it in physical tension and excitation, and also for stress. It says deep rest helps you gently sail away from the tension and worries that keep you from falling asleep at night. and can also help you during the day with stressful situations. The ingredients are red mandarin, lavender extra, sweet marjoram, and mandarin petitgreen essential oils. So these are all specifically formulated to help you get to sleep. And when you open a bottle of Deep Rest, you may recognize the familiar scent of lavender. When diffused, it helps even the most long-suffering insomniacs enjoy a peaceful night's sleep. So I'm really eager to actually try this via a nebulizer, because I think that's where you're going to get the best benefit if you can actually get it into a nebulizer. But they're saying you can actually do it in a bath before bed too, like you would with an Epsom salt bath. And you can apply it to the soles of the feet, which is also a really good way to apply essential oils. Soles of the feet and pulse points in the temples. Basically, the insides of your wrists, because your body will absorb this stuff as soon as you start putting it on. So the soles of the feet, the insides of the wrists, and the temples. If you don't have a diffuser, I think that would be the best way well, it's really the best way to apply almost all of the oils. I mean, unless you're like using it on a specific topical situation. So those are the oils that I'm going to bring in that I've already got. I've already got them in stock. So, and again, I just hit the high points on here. I am including the links for this in this newsletter, and you can click on any of these to know more about them. So, then here's an email from a listener, and she said, I had a question about the standard process product Cyruta Plus. But first, I wanted to thank you for your help over the year. My husband's surgery went very well, and his recent checkup shows no sign of any cancer. He did, as you said, and did not take the antibiotic, but the 5,000 part per million mild silver protein in the case of the infection. So far, so good, praise God. I purchased the Cyruta Plus from you for the gum issues a while ago. Now, again, what you would use Cyruta Plus for is if you had receding gums or bleeding gums with no infection. If you had receding or bleeding gums with infection, you would use Cataplex ACP. Okay, so they both come in 90 and 360 count bottles, but they're just a little bit different for what you're trying to do that for. And again, I have a whole file on teeth issues that keeps getting bigger almost by the week as I just keep adding to it and refining and honing and getting more feedback. But I've sold more. I don't know. Whatever the New World Order is doing is really going after people's teeth, because I've even had some teeth issues that I mean, I'm taking Biodent every day. I never even did that before, but I've even had a little bit of teeth issues, not like a cavity or anything, but just, transient pains and stuff like that. And I think it's whatever the New World Order is doing is really, really going after our teeth and our teeth enamel, and setting people up for cavities and infections and receding gums and bleeding gums and infected gums and you name it. So if you need that file, just let me know. She said, I purchased Cyruta Plus from you for gum issues a while ago and came across a presentation from a Dr. Tent speaking on this product for heart issues. I wanted to check with you on that. I occasionally have chest pain and inflammation that I can't seem to get under control for a long period of time. I take what they call natocera. What that means is she's taking nattokinase and serrapeptase, which are two enzymes I've talked a lot about. I actually have those that I sell as well. I have them as separate products. The serrapeptase is a really good product for injury healing and old scar tissue formation, or if you just had a surgery, dealing with the scar tissue left behind and accelerating the healing process. And then the nattokinase I primarily use to help. It does have a deplaquing effect on the arteries, but its bigger component is thinning the blood. And that's why if you ever take nattokinase, you never take it with a blood thinner. Never take it with something like Coumadin, which is rat poison, or Wayfarin. You never take that with a med. You either do either or. And the nattokinase is excellent at keeping the blood thin. So I have two. It's about the highest quality nattokinase and serrapeptase I could find at the highest strength. And those are the ones I have in my product line. If you want to know more about those, just email me. So she says, I take Natocera for the back, neck, and joint pain. I rub magnesium oil on my chest whenever I get pain. I'm thinking Cyruta Plus may get to the root of the problem. If you still, if so, do you still sell it, or is there something better suited for my issues? I can't thank you enough for all your help. I've been able to help so many others because of you freely giving out valuable knowledge. Well, praise the Lord Jesus Christ. That's awesome. God bless you. And then, so my reply, Susan, yeah, yes, actually, I do sell the product, but are you sure he was not talking about Cyruta as opposed to Cyruta Plus? And she clarified that she said later that I'm pretty sure she said that, yes, I think it maybe was Cyruta. The reason is, as Cyruta is specifically listed, see, there's a Cyruta and there's a Cyruta Plus. Cyruta, by standard process, is specifically listed for arteriosclerosis, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol. Whereas Cyruta Plus is geared for other conditions like receding or bleeding gums, strengthening the arteries or veins, migraines, and fatigue. It's listed for migraines as well. I've had people do really well on Cyruta Plus. They feel a migraine coming on, and they literally chew 2 or 3 at the start of a migraine. Migraines are a different animal than just a regular headache. So yes, migraine, a lot of times it can be the next out, but once those things start, people have to like lock themselves in a room, in a dark room, and not move and all this stuff. I've never experienced that. I have had patients that experienced a ton of results from migraines, but a lot of times it would happen like maybe after work, I wasn't around, they couldn't get a chiropractic adjustment, and they just have to suffer. Well, Cyruta Plus is something that you could literally chew every, I think, 15 minutes, a couple of them. A lot of times it'll knock out a migraine. Now, if you do that in addition to this headache product I just told you about, maybe diffusing it or rubbing it on those points that I mentioned, I think that would be a really dynamite combination. Because now you're getting in what they call synergy, where you're using multiple therapies to address a problem. So I normally don't carry the Cyruta, but it is an excellent product. As if plaquing and arteriosclerosis is the reason for someone's chest pain, which it usually is. I mean, let's face it. Somebody that's getting chronic chest pain, especially if it's with exertion. Well, what's that called? Angina. What's that from? Lack of oxygen to the heart muscle. So much so that your heart is actually starting to, cramp. It's giving you chest pain. Well, Cyruta is listed for that. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself here. If that's the case, though, somebody's having chest pain from angina, okay? It's not because they have a lack of nitroglycerin in their bloodstream. All nitroglycerin does is open up the coronary artery, but it does nothing to deplaque the artery, okay? All it is putting a Band-Aid on a situation that's eventually going to kill you if you let it keep going, okay? So what I like to do is let's take care of the source of the problem. Yes, Cyruta, if I had a really, really bad plaquing case, somebody comes to me, well, I'm 95% plaqued up on my carotid arteries, according to this Doppler ultrasound. Oh boy. Okay, that means you're like a ticking time bomb and could die any second. Yeah, you need IV chelation, you need nanokinase. Of course, you wouldn't want to take it with Coumadin because they probably got you in a blood thinner. But if you're going to go totally natural route, you take nanokinase. And you don't overdo it on nanokinase because you don't want to make the blood too thin. It's not like, with nanokinase, more is not better, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. Like a couple a day of the product I got is about all I would go. And you take it on an empty stomach because you want the enzyme to get into the bloodstream undigested. You want serapeptase the same way. You want it to get into the bloodstream undigested. If you take it with food, it'll digest your food. You don't want it for that process. So you would do, this would be worst case scenario for a plaquing case. IV chelation, and you had all the money in the world to spend. IV chelation, 30 to 40 treatments. Cyruta, I'd probably say 3 with meals, so at least 9 a day. And nanokinase, 2, 1 in the morning, 1 at night on an empty stomach, probably before bed in the morning. That would keep your blood thin. It would actively go after deplaquing the artery, and then I would also put in their Cardio Plus by standard process, which is your standard mainstay cardiac product that it would be like your base product for any cardiac case. I take it, personally, I take it just because it's really good for you, and it's just an excellent cardiovascular product. Just, to be on. Now, there's a lot of other things that can cause high blood pressure, just even beyond plaquing. If you have a congested liver, congested kidneys, that can do it as well. So you would want to make sure if you have a really high systolic number, that's an indicator that, granted it could totally be plaquing. It could also be a plaquing plus the liver being gummed up. You want to do a liver detox, okay? If it is the kidneys, it's your diastolic number. Your low number is going to tend to be higher. And that one, basically, the one I do for that is Rena food for the kidneys. And for the liver, if you just wanted to do, well, really for the liver, I almost have to, at bare minimum, do Livoplex and choline, because choline defats the liver, breaks down gallstones. There's no choline in the Livoplex. It's the one thing it lacks. So bare minimum on kidneys is Rena food by standard process. Pretty much bare minimum on liver is Livoplex and choline, 6 per day. Your minimum cleanse, if you've never ever cleansed in your life, you really should do 2 months. Okay? Think about it. If you never got an oil, lube, and filter in your car your whole life, can you imagine what your car would be like if you took it in at 200,000 miles? Not like it would ever last that long, but if you did, it'd be a mess. Well, that's why I say Rome wasn't built in a day. If you've never done any detoxing, give your body a couple months on the detoxes. Start slow. Your body's probably not going to like the way your body feels when it's detoxing, as you're dumping all these toxins and systems are starting to ramp up that have not been working right for so long, and your body's going to be getting rid of stuff. So bear that in mind. Start slow. But these are all things that will cause high blood pressure. Being overweight, that'll cause it, because for every pound of weight you have extra, your body has to form like 16 more miles of capillaries or something. I don't know, it's some unbelievable number. So the heart has to pump harder to get it through the extra fat. So the blood pressure will naturally rise in order to compensate that. By you taking high blood pressure pills to lower it artificially, you're causing a very unnatural thing to happen in the body. And that by itself can have all kind of side effects. The drugs have side effects. They gum up the liver, which is even worse for high blood pressure. So I have a whole newsletter on this that I can email you, and just email me and I'll send it out to you on cardiovascular, because it's such a vast subject and there's so much to it, and you really have to go through. It's very complicated, cardiovascular issues. From what I found, they're pretty easy to help, those cases, but a lot of times a lot has to be done. But it's one of those things, if you don't compensate really through, from my standpoint, the clinical nutrition, or through some natural means, obviously can have really dire side effects like death. Because heart attacks can kill you really quick, or a stroke. So continuing on with this, let's see here. I would advise, if somebody's having chest pains, taking the oral EDTA chelation at bare minimum. Oral is a lot less aggressive than IV. IV is way more expensive. You're going to look at $100 to $150 a pop. You're going to need 30 to 50 treatments. You're going to have to find an MD that'll do it. There's not many that do, because it's demonized in the medical profession, because it cures the problem and they can't do open heart surgery and put stents in and do angioplasty and all that other garbage they do, or scrape your carotid arteries. What about all the other hundreds of miles of arteries in your body that are also plaqued up? Oh, well, just do the carotids. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Putting stents in your heart. It's ridiculous. It's such a scam. And in this stuff, it's not a disease. It's a natural byproduct of bad lifestyle choices. It's not like I caught a disease when I have arteriosclerosis. It's cause and effect. You got a gummed up liver, most likely. You're making poor food choices, and stuff starts to plaque up. There's other reasons too, but going further, let's see here. I highly advise taking the oral chelation, and I can send you a file on that. I don't sell the chelation currently, but I can give you a file on the company that I recommend. And as it seems to work quicker than any other supplement out there if you take it like I advise, the EDTA chelation, as far as deplaquing you. Okay. Pomegranates also deplaque you. The product from Standard Process Saruta does. The EDTA chelation does. But there's a way you want to do the EDTA chelation, and I send you the attachment on that because it's... anyway, going further, this is me personally. He says, I can tell you in the last few years, I have occasionally gotten left-sided chest pain. And if I take just one dose of EDTA under my tongue with 3 to 5 drops of DMSO and hold it under my tongue for 5 to 10 minutes, the chest pain is gone within an hour or two. Now, why would I get that? Well, I actually did permanent damage to my heart. That time that I died on that football field that I told you about before, I've said that many times. I took that stupid GHB drug, didn't know what it did, put it with a beer, had this chemical reaction, killed me and my buddy. They found us, we were dead. They defibrillated us back to life. I'm not making this up. I was like the youngest one they'd ever had in this cardiac unit, they said. And they said I had what they call an inverted T wave when I was done, which on an EKG, when you have an inverted T wave, that means that the heart muscle has had a sustained amount of damage to it from lack of oxygen. Okay, and I did permanent damage to my heart, and I'm always going to be dealing with that to a certain extent. So yeah, every once in a while I even get chest pain, but I'm telling you, it knocks it out. The EDTA chelation. I also use organic peppermint oil with it to kill the taste of the EDTA and the DMSO, because it's not two great tastes that taste great together. The EDTA and the DMSO. Oh, I've had worse. The DMSO is really bad. The EDTA is not too bad. But the peppermint, like this peppermint I've got, oh man, it is nice. And it's not as strong as the Now Foods one or some of the other ones I've had in the past. It seems like it's milder. Man, it's just the best. I love this peppermint oil, this new one I've just brought in. I wouldn't recommend it to you if I'm not using it personally. Then I tell her the Natto Sera product you're taking is excellent to keep the blood thin and for healing injuries and breaking down scar tissue. But I found the EDTA is the best to actually deplaque the arteries. But it sounds like the Saruta does that as well as it has other benefits as well. I sell everything but the EDTA as I cannot touch the prices at the link listed in the attachment to the email. So here's the deal. If there's a product out there and I can't touch the price, I'm not going to tell you to buy it from me. I'm going to tell you to go to the source and buy it from them and get a better deal. You know, because I don't want to try to gouge people and you know, do something like that. I would want to do unto others as you'd have done unto yourself, and that's what I try to do. So if there's products out there and I can't touch the price, I'm going to refer you right to the source. All right, let's go further here. Okay. Here is an email from a listener, Fabiana. And it's entitled GM, Genetically Modified Mosquitoes Spreading Birth Defects in Brazil. Hello, Dr. Johnson. Maybe the mainstream media in the U.S. is not talking about it, but the GM mosquitoes created by Bill Gates and released here in Brazil last year. Thank you, Bill Gates, you devil. Last year is proving to be a disgrace. Before these GM mosquitoes were released, we never had a single case of Zika virus. A year later, now the country is facing a severe epidemic of microcephaly, a birth defect where the baby's brain does not develop. The OMS, I guess their organization there, is even asking Brazilian women to not get pregnant as the risk is very high. And guess what? Bill Gates' company is planning to release the very same GM mosquitoes in other countries, including the U.S. See, these people are nothing but inhuman monsters. They're nothing but total vessels of Satan, fitted, meaning prepared ahead of time for God's destruction. As the Bible says, the wicked go astray from the womb, they speak lies as soon as they be born. And Bill Gates is a great example of that. Then she goes on to say, the situation reminds me that of the scripture where it says, woe to the pregnant women and nursing mothers in those days, for there will be great distress in the land. Yeah. And then she gives me the link to the Brazilian Zika virus epidemic of microcephaly from The Guardian. So if you want to see more about that, you can look on that. Then, this is just a snippet of news. In the 1980s, two studies in 1987 and 1989 found that 1 in 2,500 to 3,000 U.S. children had autism. You heard that right. Now, this is after they've already, this is when autism was on the rise. I mean, they were starting to ramp up vaccine schedules by the 80s. But even back in 87, which was the year I graduated high school, in 87 and 89, they found just 1 in 2,500 to 3,000 children had autism. But the CDC just announced that 1 in 45 children are diagnosed with autism in 2014. 1 in 45. Used to be just say 1 in 2,750. We'll just split the number. Back in 87 and 89. Now 1 in 45. Thank you, vaccinations. Plus, now you get your microchip with it. So it's like killing two satanic birds with one stone. What's not to like? I mean, just impossible to comprehend the kind of wickedness we're facing. Next report, National Cancer Institute research scientist whistleblower on the contamination of vaccines. Dr. Mikovits, biochemist and former research scientist for the National Cancer Institute, spills the beans and gets fired, harassed, yet holds all the files on the raw data to prove that vaccines provided and still provide the vector technology that has single-handedly contaminated the population with retroviruses associated with the alteration of DNA in parents and children, resulting in autism, neurological damage, MS, CFS, cancer, diabetes, on and on and on. Alteration of DNA causing all of these things. It's all from the vaccines. Or a ton of it is from it. Okay, now I've only got a little bit of time left, and I want to try to get to this last part so we can just end this with 2 parts. The next is entitled Vaccines, an Ideal Covert Op to Genetically Re-Engineer Humans. Why is the government so maniacal about injecting vaccines? The reference is in the New York Times report of 3/15/15 entitled Protection Without a Vaccine. It describes the frontier of research. Here are the key quotes that illustrate the use of synthetic genes to, quote, protect against genes while changing the genetic makeup of humans. This is not science fiction. By delivering, and I think this is from the report out of the New York Times, by delivering synthetic genes into the muscles of experimental monkeys, the scientists are essentially re-engineering the animals to resist disease. Yeah, you're also changing them on a genetic level. They're not monkeys anymore. They're some type of transhumanistic hybrid chimera, basically. That goes on to say, the sky's the limit, said Michael Farzan, an immunologist at Scripps and lead author of the new study. The first human trial based on this strategy, called immunoprophylaxis by gene transfer, or IGT, is underway, and several new ones are planned. IGT is altogether different from traditional vaccination. It is instead a form of gene therapy. Scientists isolate the genes that produce powerful antibodies against certain diseases and then synthesize artificial versions. The genes are then placed into viruses and injected into human tissues. So the viruses are actually the vector of genetic DNA contamination. I mean, how satanically wonderful can you get? All the more reason to make sure you line up to get your flu shots and every other vaccine they want to inject into us, ramping us up to about 150, not in the not too distant future, per adult. Here's the punchline. The virus invades human cells with their DNA payloads, and the synthetic gene is incorporated into the recipient's own DNA. So in other words, you're changed on a genetic level. You're not human anymore. You're human 2.0, as the transhumanism. But you know what? You're not human anymore. You're not, do you even have any interest in even hearing about the things of God? Getting saved? Probably not. Probably not. If all goes well, the new genes instruct the cells to begin manufacturing powerful antibodies. Oh, well, the ends justify the means. So it says, read that again. The synthetic gene is incorporated into the recipient's own DNA. Alteration of the human genetic makeup. Not just a visit, permanent residence. Meaning your DNA is changed on a molecular level, period, forever. You're not fully human anymore. The Times article taps Dr. David Baltimore for an opinion. Still, Dr. Baltimore says that he envisions that some people might be leery of this vaccination strategy, that it then it means altering their own DNA, even if it prevents a potentially fatal disease. Yeah, I can't imagine why anybody be leery of this. I mean, the Lake of Fire is a really fun place, and they want to get as many people in there as possible. So if they can just change us on a genetic level and our DNA on a genetic level and turn us all into these transhumanism chimeras walking around that cannot be saved, I mean, it's still worth it, though, that I didn't come down with that fatal disease, in this lifetime, to burn in the Lake of Fire for eternity. Hell, and then the Lake of Fire. Yeah, some people might be leery if they have 2 or 3 working brain cells. Let's take this further. Under the cover of preventing disease, vaccines are ideal carriers for all sorts of genes that would permanently be incorporated into the human structure. The enormous tonnage of propaganda about vaccines and the resultant mandatory laws that enforce vaccination without fear of any liability, because you can't sue the vaccine companies anymore, this creates a powerful channel along which re-engineering of humanity is imminently possible. Synthetic genes injected into billions of humans would form a grand experiment to create an altered species. Human 2.0, not fully human anymore. Not only that, then they're going to really hit you with all the neural implants and all the microchips, and then you're going to be part cyborg, part re-engineered DNA. I mean, you're going to be, devil incarnate. If they get away with what they want to get away with. Some of this is already happening already, but the Times article presents a much fuller picture of what is approaching on the immediate horizon. This grand experiment will be compartmentalized. For example, secretly, genes 1 through 6 will be injected into Group A in geolocation 1. Genes 7 through 12 will be injected into Group B in location 2, and so on. So I guess they can observe what different kind of outcomes that they're achieving with this satanic experiments. On various pretexts, members of these groups will be brought into the clinics for exams and tests to discover the markers that purportedly reveal their body's responses to the genetic alterations. Are these people stronger or weaker? Do they exhibit signs of illness? Do they report behavioral changes? Through surveillance and testing, all sorts of information can be compiled. Of course, there's no informed consent, meaning you have no idea what they're giving you, and the human guinea pigs have no knowledge of what is being done to them. And what would be the objectives of this lunatic research program? Well, I told you the objective. Whoever they're injecting into, getting into the lake of fire and being used as a vessel of Satan for whatever time they have on this earth. And that, whatever that vessel is, then begging for the mark of the beast when it's all said and done. So that's what the goal is. They would vary. They're saying they would vary. On a simplified level, there would be 2. Create weaker and more docile and more obedient, more dependent humans. Yeah, true. On the other side, create a stronger and healthier and more intelligent, more talented humans. That would be the, super elite class. Obviously, the results of the latter experiments would be applied to the chosen few. And clearly, some of this research will be carried out inside the military. I'm sure that's already been done for a long time. They already talked a lot about super soldiers. Secrecy is easier to maintain, and the aim is to produce better soldiers, is a long-standing goal of the Pentagon and its research arm, DARPA. A global vaccine experiment of this type I'm describing here has another bonus for the planners. Those people who fall ill or die can be written off as having suffered from various diseases and disorders which supposedly have nothing to do with vaccines. Of course, and they have that excuse. This is already SOP for the medical cartel, standard operating procedure. The numbers of casualties in this grand experiment would be of no concern to the brave New World shapers. As I've documented extensively, the U.S. medical system is already killing 2.25 million people per decade, which is a very conservative estimate, as a result of FDA-approved drugs and mistreatment in hospitals. Major media and government leaders are aware of this fact. They've done nothing about it. Here is a quote from Princeton molecular biologist Lee Silver, the author of Remaking Eden. It gives you a window into how important geneticists are thinking about an engineered future. The gen rich, who account for 10% of the American population, will all carry synthetic genes. All aspects of the economy, the media, the entertainment industry, and the knowledge industry are controlled by the members of the, quote, gen rich class. Naturals, who are unaltered humans, work as low-paid service providers or as laborers. This is the same theme as the movie Gattaca, just so you know. Eventually, the gen-rich class and the natural class will become entirely separate species with no ability to even crossbreed, and with much romantic interest in each other as the current human world would have to a chimpanzee. Here's another gem. From Gregory Stock, former director of Program for Medicine and Technology at UCLA School of Medicine, even if half the world's species were lost during the genetic experiments, enormous diversity would still remain. When those in the distant future look back on this period of history, they will see it not as the era when the natural environment was impoverished, but as an age when the plethora of new forms, some biological, some technological, some combination of the two, burst onto the scene. With vaccines that permanently alter human genetic makeup on the horizon, and given the corporate and government agency penchant for secrecy, we are already inhabiting the brave new world. It's not a distant prospect. Every genetic innovation is aimed at bringing us closer to a satanically entrapped world and further away from freedom, which is why the defense of freedom becomes even more vital. That struggle comes down to who controls the philosophy that influences the science. Questions like, is each human merely and only a system waiting to be re-engineered? Or is he something far more inhabiting a physical form? We already know what the vast majority of brain researchers and geneticists believe, as well as the governments and corporations, universities, and foundations that make the important decisions. That leaves us up to us to make the final argument. Now, there is a link here to vaccine exemption, and I give you the link to this article because they probably have some more resources regarding that. Now, I have a whole file I can send you on legal remedies for vaccines, but what they're trying to do is just create this to the point where there will be no more legal remedies. So this is why it's so important for people to wake up on a mass scale and to push back against this. The population that hasn't been brain damaged to the point of being able to resist. And this is why it's so important. So that's all I have for today. I'm probably going to go ahead and just put this up as a separate teaching, this health corner, and then because I've already done this and it's quite a ways until Sunday, so I might just do that this time instead of tacking it on to the end, and that way you'll have the information a lot quicker, because this I need to get this out. This is super important. So God bless you, and we will see you, I believe, in the next current event weekly Bible study teaching. God bless you. Thank you.